The original demonstration. Talk to me. How successful have they been? I mean, have they made a pretty good business structure since the original demonstration? Polk County, I think you said Sarasota.
And San Antonio, sir. Yeah.
How are those companies doing?
I would have to get back to you on that. I'm really not. I do not recall which particular companies were involved in the demonstration, so I would not be able to tell you where they are now. The thing that I can tell you about the demonstration is that our findings were that we saved about in the neighborhood of 20%. I think it was a little less than that in terms of program savings, and that was savings for Medicare and beneficiaries in terms of reduced coinsurance, and that we didn't see any impact on quality. Those were the findings of the demonstration, and again, I'm not sure where those companies are now and what their history's been. Yeah. Be happy to check, though.
Yeah, because I guess it was our understanding that a few of those companies aren't doing very well at all. We talked about the cost savings, and obviously being a Blue Dog member of that caucus, I'm very much for cost savings, and you talked about the 20% down. What increase, if any, of quality of care did you find out in this survey research?
In the demonstration?
Mm-hmm.
The finding that I recall from the evaluation report on that demonstration was that quality was not negatively impacted. That's what I recall. So I don't know that quality increased as a result of the demonstration. The thing that I would say is there were not quality standards in place and an accreditation process in place at the time. There was also not a set of financial standards as the law requires us to have now, sure, and a number of other programmatic requirements.
Because obviously we can cut savings in a lot of different areas. I mean, obviously we got a budget that's coming up that I think that probably no one's going to be happy with. I mean, it's going to be probably broad cuts across the board. But in these financial times, we obviously have to cut costs. But we always have to be very mindful of the quality of care. I have a grandmother who is on oxygen, and I know her quality of life actually increased once the doctor recommended her to be on oxygen. Now, obviously this is for another discussion. That's no different than insulin medication for patients. I personally feel that it is a prescription, and as long as the person is alive and needs oxygen, then it needs to be provided for them just as insulin is. It's my grandmother was not a smoker. I mean, it just happenstance. That's how God made her. I guess help me to understand, if a patient is distraught with the service that they're getting provided by the company that's been awarded the contract, what can they do about changing to get another provider? How would that process work?
Under the competitive bidding program, sir?
Yes.
Well, I think one of the things that we found, and I'll just go back to our 2008 experience, and let me just first preface this by saying that the program was only active for 2 weeks. We call it 14 days in July. So we don't have a lot of experience or a lot of records on everything.
But there's obviously some research has been done before. I mean, like most laws, surely we think this process through before we
Sure.
throw it in the law.
I think one of the things, absolutely, and I think one of the things that I think there are a lot of things, as I mentioned in my testimony, that we want to try to improve in this program for next time. But one of the things that I think we did a pretty good job on was getting in touch with beneficiaries, talking to them about the program, making sure that Medicare 1-800 knew what to do, having an infrastructure in place, caseworkers, ombudsman staff at our contractors, to be able to address concerns that came up from beneficiaries. So I think we did that pretty well. And so what would happen if someone had a concern with their supplier, or maybe there was confusion about grandfathering, and we didn't see a lot of this, but when we did, we were able to get a caseworker on these issues and usually resolve it within 24 hours. And typically what would happen, most of the calls that we got did involve, I need a supplier for this, and I don't know where to go, because the supplier that I used to go to no longer is part of the competitive bidding program. and we were able to direct them to new suppliers. And in most cases, there were multiple suppliers. Actually, in all cases, there were multiple suppliers in each area to provide choice to beneficiaries. We had, 42, 44 oxygen suppliers in Miami. Most places had 15 or 20 suppliers for a product category. Puerto Rico had fewer. That's not part of the program next time. Congress excluded Puerto Rico. So I think that was a process that worked for us and worked pretty well.
Well, Mr. Wilson, just in closing, I would like to suggest if there's any way possible from CMS to scrap the program and start all over. I would highly suggest that, and I would like to obviously work with my colleagues and on small business and obviously with the other committees to try to work with getting to some better quality of standards. Obviously, we need standards. We obviously need to cut cost. We need that, especially in the economic times that we're having. But to put our small businesses out is very difficult. We need to create jobs, not cut jobs and put people out of business. And some of them, I'm sure there's a lot of people in this that are attending here today that probably have their mortgages attached to their businesses. I mean, that's a way that's, as most people, that's the biggest asset that they have is their home. And so when you don't compete in a competitive bidding process, and I'm sure if you look at the financial side of it, that that probably would be a negative toward a business if they're if that's their source of the liability that they have. They don't have their house paid for, and that's where they put their all their debt of their company based upon an equity, or have a line of credit for their company based upon their home equity loan. So I think we need to take obviously a much better look at this and possibly start all over, or take some of the information obviously that's been provided. I mean, very well, there's some things that can be done. I think there's a compromise at some point, and I want us to all compromise and work together. I mean, there's a reason why so many people showed up today, that it's true and dear to their families and their livelihoods, and big business pushes over the small business in a lot of areas, and I just don't think that it's going to help lower cost. It may in the short term, but I think in the overall long term, I think we're going to see more problems and issues when it comes to the large companies coming in and taking control of the smaller areas and putting these people out of business. So